advice would you give to your 21-year-old self?
Don't worry if at 21 you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're planning. Don't think I've got to figure it out by 23 or by 25 and tie yourself down because I didn't really know what I wanted to do until I was 35. I was still fishing around, trying to figure it out. Finally, like I said, finding my thing by probably 32, 33. Finally figuring out the thing I could do that I really enjoyed and that I was good at. And I was freaking out at 25. Like, what am I going to do? I don't know. I should have. You know, I can't enjoy myself. I can't relax. I can't go and maybe travel somewhere because I've got to get on the career ladder. And I feel like I missed things that I should have done. So don't panic, because if you're 21 now, you're probably going to live to about 140, by which time the retirement age is going to be 110. So don't freak out that you've got to figure it out by 30.
So really importantly, it's not to constrain yourself by what you know today. It's to be open to what you could do tomorrow. And honestly, that held me back for half of my career. I didn't realise it. I wasn't unhappy. But I think so many of us, and particularly women that I know, we think we can only do what we know we can do. And it was by having great mentors who said to me, Lisa, you know, I want you to go and do this. I want you to go and lead the acquisition of a business. And I'm thinking, but I've never done that before. But actually what you realise, and we're particularly lucky in companies like KPMG, is we've got all of the expertise. So you can do anything if you have the people around you to support and help. And for me, that's the biggest learning. And I say it to my daughters, you know, regularly. Don't worry. If you don't know how to do something, work out how you're going to learn to do it.
The best investment you can make is in yourself. I think it will pay off. I had to work hard at school to be very average. Didn't come easy to me. You know, I was a B, C sort of GCSE student. But the more I did, the more I got used to the academic system and how to answer questions in the structure that they would mark it, and I became better at it. I practiced it. But I think, you know, I learned at an early age, I think, as I went on, that if you spend time learning, if you put in the time reading rather than watching the TV, knowledge is, you can't put a price on knowledge, can you?
Let me just ask you, what does good leadership mean to you?
If you've got a core ability to at least sometimes see the other person's opinion, sit there and listen to how other people would feel, think about how other people would feel, and think about how the actions that you're making would make others feel, then it really, really helps in everything that you do in life, leadership or otherwise. So that would probably be my number one thing after all this time.
And from my point of view, a leader is someone who actually understands and can clearly articulate sort of what that journey is, the strategic imperatives. And that applies to whatever you're doing in life. Obviously, if you're coming at it from a business point of view, then having absolute clarity on what the business strategy is. So everything starts from that point. And once you've got then, a leader is somebody then who can sort of motivate, persuade, cajole, direct where necessary, so that people actually follow them on that journey. All right. So it's not my idea of a leader is not somebody says, I'm telling you this, and you know, just ask how high I want you to jump. That's not my idea of leader. A leader is somebody who can bring everybody with them on that particular journey there. So builds collaborative teams, empowers people to make decisions at the right for either the business or for them in life. And I know that I've succeeded as a leader when I've actually made myself obsolete, all right? Because my role and what I'm actually doing in the organization I'm with at the moment is to create an environment where people can actually make the right strategic decisions for themselves. So in other words, my role is to create leaders, all right? So that people are empowered on that journey. And once I'm completed on that, I will walk off into the sunset. My job is done.
I mean, effective leadership, I think you can kind of sum it up in one short sentence. It's all about getting people to perform to the best of their abilities at the same time as driving towards a shared goal. That's it. It's simple. You have a shared goal. You make it very clear what that objective is, that your vision, where you're heading towards. And then you basically, as a leader, you just enable everyone to perform to the best of their ability.
Top piece of productivity advice. How do you stay productive?
I think my number one advice for productivity is reduce unnecessary meetings. I think that can suck the life out of you. And the other sub advice that I give people, and I'm doing that myself, is walk and talk, which is a lot of calls, like especially with your directs, like people who you know well, your teams.
Sure.
If you're doing one-on-one check-ins, I do the walk and talk where I'm not in my screen. I'm going to take a walk outside, and I tell my other party here as well, like, hey, go take a walk in your backyard or wherever, we'll walk and talk.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good way to.
Any particular tools like that you use, productivity tools or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, for productivity, we've used things like Todoist and all of that to keep you on track. But I think it ultimately comes down to personal discipline of get yourself out of meetings you don't need to be in, reduce that time, and like have blocks of time that you can get work done. Because I try not to have half-hour blocks between meetings. I try to create a larger block of time because it does take time for your head to like reset. And so my advice is if you do your schedules, try to do meetings in one block. Try to have a block of time without any distractions.
It's paying attention and having discipline and knowing when you need to switch off or try to switch off. So I think I've become a lot better in more recent years of just recognizing when I need that downtime. Yeah. When I need to shut off the notifications and the alerts and everything else.
Technology innovation are you most excited about in the world?
The one that's most exciting to me is what we're calling 6G, and the stuff I get most excited about. There's two areas.
Of that one. 5G only just came, didn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. God, how inventive are you, Joe? You've gone 5G and added one. Woo! What a visionary. Yeah, you know. No, so I think very simply, and to in brief. What we're looking at the moment, if you look at the moment, we have telcos, so your Vodafones, etc., and then we have your cloud companies, your Amazons, and things like that. Yeah. Through 3G, 4G, and 5G, the telco networks have become more and more like IT companies because they've had to be because of how you build and deploy those networks and how they're operated. So they're less physical, they're more virtual, digital, etc., etc. 6G is where we're going to see ultimately there will be no difference between a telco and a cloud company. So the battles are going to be coming up between the Vodafones and Amazon and Microsoft and T-Systems and all these kind of things. And so it's really interesting to see that happen.
Capability that the cloud has provided has kind of, created that opportunity. So the thing that gets me really excited is before any of that comes true, data has to be made useful. Yeah. Data is a bit like iron ore insofar as there's lots of it and it's valuable, but it's not useful in its raw state. And we can refine it by hand. We can slowly knit it together in code to make something useful out of it, but that's really slow and it requires the expertise of specialist people. But if you imagine that almost limitless demand for insight, limitless demand to make every aspect of how we work, live and play better with data, there's great underlying capability to do that with the cloud and with cloud data platforms like Snowflake and Redshift and Databricks. But there's need to make the data useful before you can do any of that.
Yeah, the stuff that sort of is, I've got my sort of arms and my sleeves rolled up on at the moment is around payments. And I think we're very fortunate in the UK to have we're right at the vanguard of sort of fintech and financial services innovation, and we've got a very enlightened regulator, the FCA, who has really supported innovation and created things like a sandbox that is designed to let sort of startups kind of compete with the big boys, and the payment side of it, and sort of how that works, and open banking, giving sort of everybody giving consumers ownership of their data, but allowing them to open it up to additional services. There's still a lot more innovation to come in that space, and good Lord, we're trying to use as much of that as we can. We're big believers in using open banking to help simplify the process of proving financial information. We're trying to streamline and improve the payments process. A lot of payments going on in the process of letting properties, obviously, and we're bringing a lot of technology to that. We're actually creating hundreds of bank accounts a day, giving every tenant who goes through the platform their own bank, a unique bank account, for example. So there is, I think there's still a lot more innovation to come in the sort of payments and financial services sector. That's the stuff that I'm really excited about at the moment.
Yeah. But what piece of content, what book or comparable piece of content have you been inspired by in recent times?
Own the Room. It's by a lady called Viv Grosskop. Groskop. It's such a good book.
Okay.
I love it.
What I wish was, there are some books that I wish had been around when I was 21 and working out what I would do. So things like Sheryl Sandberg and Lean In, things like Michelle Obama, because they were books that if I'd had access to things then to make me understand maybe how my own mind was working, I think it would have made just such a massive difference for me.
It's The Infinite Leader by Chris Lewis and Pippa Malmgren.
Okay.
I've started reading that the last couple of months. Still wading through it. But balancing the demands of modern business leadership.